Just the normal amount, I think.
Okay.
It's 7 p.m. here. So
How did the session with Ricardo go? And with
it was good. Yeah,
midnight
lots
session
of
for
good
him?
discussions. I had like 20 participants in discussing a lot of good ideas.
Noise.
Nice. How long have you
We
been?
have we had how many signups? Pretty crazy.
Yeah, over 200.
100 something. Sweet.
Nice. All right, we
Um,
are 15 past now. Might still be a few people joining. Yeah. Let's give it another minute. Did you watch Christian talk?
the last 5 minutes, I was biking through Far Labs.
Nice.
There's some crazy thing happening here today. Some
Oh,
hardware thing. It's very exciting.
at Far Labs?
And I only and I only noticed yesterday. And then yesterday I heard like that all those crazy people are coming here today. I'm like, oh wow. So I might like sneak in there later and just chat with some interesting folks.
That sounds great. Well, get into the hardware challenge.
Yes, I should advertise that.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, I think we'll slowly get started. All right, thank you everyone for joining this second Hack Talk with Finn Metz, who we are pleasantly inviting to the stage here. And thank you to all the audience for joining us too. Finn is the spearhead of our AI safety startup incubator for AI safety and assurance, and has been working with Apart for over a year now, for quite a while. So this is one of the key drivers, and he has previously had experience with running an incubator already, and has done a lot of work in the German ecosystem, both in AI tech and beyond. So take it away, Finn. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for the intro. Very happy to be here. Yeah, today I'm gonna keep it light. I know some of you guys have been up and hacking for a while. So today I'm hopefully just gonna give you a bit of commentary on my end, share some of my thoughts, not go in too deep in terms of technical stuff. So the question I want to talk about today is, should you found an AI safety startup? So that's the question we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to give you just some of my insights that I learned along the way. First of all, who am I? Why am I talking to you? So I'm Finn. I have a bit of experience in the early stage venture startup ecosystem. So as Espen just mentioned, I'm currently building Zeldin, building ASI 2030. So that's our new AI safety, AI assurance incubator. So you might also notice that I'm a bit biased here. So take everything I say maybe with that in mind. Additionally, I also worked in venture capital for quite a while, in early stage, growth stage, VC, also in private equity. Then I helped create and run the incubator, AI incubator, Tom AI, where we had, so that is a place where we have some more regular events for AI safety founders that want to get into it. I'm also going to talk about that a bit later. And then lastly, also venture partner at Juniper, and also work at Apart, as been mentioned. So a few things there. And then again down here, we're launching Zeldin. So go check it out. Already plugging it here. And yeah, so that's just quickly who I am, what my background is, and now the question of today's hack talk: should you found an AI safety startup? Just as a kind of disclaimer, everything that is being said here is kind of my own personal take. You don't have to take it too serious. Also, everything that is wrong or false in this talk is like my product, and it's kind of my thoughts, my ideas, and everything that is true about this talk or good about this talk is probably from someone else that I copied. So just keep that in mind as well. And yeah, with that, I'm gonna just jump in quickly. What are the things that I wanna touch on today? So quickly talking about the status quo, and then basically going into why you should found an organization. Talking a little bit about nonprofit and for-profit here. and then some first steps that you might want to take if you actually decide to be one. So just as a quick reminder, I'm here in the right place for this, so I don't have to be too elaborate on where we currently are, just because I kind of think it's funny where we are. AI safety is more important than ever. Like a month back, I think Sam Altman was giving an interview where he kind of said like about ASI and alignment and like how we're gonna figure that out. Is basically said, oh yeah, I think there's like some very smart people that will figure that out. So that was basically his answer, and then you have these very smart people at OpenAI shitposting on Twitter some very confusing, funny, I don't know what it is, things about super intelligence and like how they're dealing with it. So that was a researcher here who works at OpenAI kind of posting about, oh, how actually do we control super intelligence? So it seems like stuff is not slowing down, and it seems pretty urgent. I'm sure you're all familiar. You can also see that some people are adjusting their timelines, and yeah. So just to kind of set the bar or set the stage, I guess that's not news to you. Now, for the second point, so why you should found an organization. So first, starting with that, organization can be both nonprofit and for-profit. So I'm not making the distinction here. Some things that I believe are true and why kind of would kind of implicate on why you should found an organization. So we are currently not doing enough to ensure safe AGI, ASI. We're not on a path where everything looks like, oh yeah, we're good. It seems more concerning than it seems that we are on the right track. I believe we need more AI to do more AI safety research. So I think we're not nearly doing as much as we could. Third thing I believe is that getting to work full time in AI safety is hard. So even though all of these issues are so pressing, it seems like it's quite tricky for some people to get into AI safety. It seems like people having a hard time finding positions. Especially here at the part, we try to help people as much as we can, organizing hackathons, getting people to have their first publication, but it seems like that the bar is just quite high, and it is somewhat tricky to get a full-time position. At the same time, another thing I believe is that there are actually plenty of gaps in AI safety in all kind of areas, in communication, policy, many technical fields that still also need a lot of work to be done. So kind of I believe all of these things and those things kind of implicate that we actually need more organizations, and that we need more people to kind of do things in AI safety, and we need to kind of just accelerate the whole field. So these are some things I believe in, and then kind of I put some reasons here why I believe people are not starting non-profit organizations. So this is especially enough for non-profit organizations. So some of the reasons, there can be plenty of reasons. I just picked a few of them that could be the case for people not starting stuff. So the first one is people kind of overthink their ideas too much. So nonprofit is inherently critical and is kind of always asking, so what exactly is your impact? Please quantify it as much as possible. And that's an absolutely fair thing to do, right? It's great that you always kind of question, okay, what is the actual output going to be of your project? So that's great as it is. It might, however, as a side effect, lead to people kind of overthinking their ideas and people kind of requiring you to have a completely thought out theory of change and a completely thought out kind of plan for your project without you having the possibility to gather any evidence on what you actually want to do. So what I've kind of seen sometimes is that we don't really acknowledge the uncertainty that's kind of involved with starting an organization and with figuring out what is actually impactful. So you need to kind of write a grant application before you can actually tell if this thing is worth really considering in the long run. And kind of the process slows a few things down as compared with for-profits. I believe that uncertainty is a bit more acknowledged, and that also people kind of are invested in as people rather than in ideas. So it's more like, oh, I think these people here are smart. I think they're going to figure it out. Whereas in nonprofit orgs, it's mostly like, oh, I don't really care too much about who you are as long as you have a okay-ish background. But I really care about your idea. And I think that kind of leads a bit to fewer people founding organizations, or a few people who are really capable to do so, or kind of in a good position to do so, to actually do it. And at the same time, there's less pivots as you have in for-profit startups, where people say, oh, let me actually pivot to another direction because I figure out this isn't worth it. I think it's harder in nonprofit to do so. If you've gotten grant money for like a 2-year thingy, then after half a year saying, oh, actually, I think there's a way better way to do this is somewhat tricky. And I think some people have some hesitance to actually do pivots in nonprofits. So one reason why people don't start orgs might be that. Another reason is someone else is doing it. Why would they? Just two things that I would like to touch on here is kind of this very default thing of saying, oh, someone else is already doing an org somewhat similar, and that kind of justifies for many people not to do a thing themselves. And I'm just, in most cases, I kind of question that, and I'm asking, okay, is it really a bad thing if there is 2 players? Is it bad if there is competition and people are trying to outpace themselves? I get that there are certain circumstances where this actually kind of leads to talent attrition and those sort of things. But in many cases, I believe we are way too few as a whole, and it doesn't hurt to have more organizations. At the same time, the world is probably more nuanced than only needing one organization per kind of like AI safety impact topic or whatever, like per one field. So I think there can be more than there currently are, and many people are put off by saying, oh, there is already some player out there, even though not questioning how well this player is actually performing, if it could be done better, etc. Second thing I would like to mention on the point on someone else is doing it is that nonprofits don't have any equity. So you don't get compensated for taking any risk when you start a new organization. So in for-profits, it's quite clear. If you take the risk of, oh, now I'm just trying for like 3 months to get this thing off the ground, and like no one's going to fund me because, as I said, like you don't have the evidence or whatever. No one's like, you don't get compensated for that period in terms of there is going to be an upside when this thing is going to be successful. So there is no real incentive to kind of start an org, or is not as much as there is in the for-profit sector. So that's like one more reason why people don't start orgs. And they're also not really incentivized to scale it much. And then as a third thing, just from personal experience, people assuming that there are adults in the room. So many people kind of assume, oh, there are people who are starting these orgs, and they are much more capable than me, and they are the chosen ones, and they are actually know what's going on. So let's just have them kind of start these orgs. And I think that's kind of a very it's not an accurate statement to make. I think there's some kind of elitism here where people think, oh, I didn't go to Oxford, or I didn't go to that place, don't have a PhD, I shouldn't start this. And I think that kind of thought is pretty inaccurate. And just also from personal experience, so I worked in quite a few places where like I worked together with people who many would consider very kind of important people, making big decisions on, I don't know, $1 million deals, raising a lot of money, or making personnel decisions for entire organizations. And my main learning was that all of these people are just kind of winging it to some extent. So no one, even in these really, really important positions, is really knowing does really know what they're doing. They just do what they can to their best abilities. No one I've ever worked with was completely out of my reach, where I was like, okay, this person is completely on a different planet. So I'm just kind of assuming that there is no adults in the room, so there's no one who's inherently better positioned to start an organization. Obviously, there is people who kind of need more training and are not really poised to do so. But I think the vast majority also just underestimates their own abilities, and to that extent. And I think you should always assume there are no adults in the room. No one has a handle on any of this, and you might need to be the one who steps up and actually does it. So quickly on non-profit orgs, why people don't really stop them, and now going a bit in towards for-profit, and why you maybe should consider starting a for-profit. So starting non-profit is really great. So that was kind of the point of the previous slide. Now we're going a bit towards why for-profit might be a good model if you work in AI safety. So one learning that I would like to kind of one argument that I would like to make for the sake of this talk would be that nonprofit AI safety does not scale. So I brought two graphs here. So on the left side, kind of just depicting the progress that we are seeing with capabilities here of like the ARC AGI benchmark. So basically just making the case that AI capabilities have been scaling like crazy. So both in terms of, okay, how smart models get, but also in all other terms. So also in how much money is being spent. So all of these labs raising billions upon billions, and they are hiring several thousand people. So like they're scaling at insane speeds. So you have this on the one side, and then you have non-profit AI safety on the other side. I brought you a graph of total AI safety spending from the kind of major AI safety funds, and you kind of see like where this is going. And I think this picture here on the right is pretty sad, or a bit concerning, if you ask me. So it's kind of just showing like how much we are actually spending on non-profit AI safety research. And you can see that in 2024, it was, I think, 111 million. And this number has been declining since 2021. I would argue that AI safety has not, it has been decreasing. I would argue that AI safety has not been decreasing in its importance or its significance for the world since then. So it's kind of funny to see, okay, we actually don't have more resources. This thing doesn't really scale for some reason. We don't really spend more money on this. And this is kind of a weird thing for me to see. So just to kind of put this number into perspective, also, it's just kind of this underlying notion, okay, we kind of have this goal of, oh, we want to solve alignment, and we want to kind of solve the biggest problem of humanity, as some phrase it. I want to avoid extinction level events here, but we kind of want to do it on 110 million, which seems a bit odd, to say the least. So even if we were to place all of this money one-to-one in like good researchers at very, very reasonable salaries, that would be 1,000 people, right? And that's, compared to everything that's going out there in the world, that's basically nothing. So just to give you some perspective, this amount here that you see that is spent on all of nonprofit AI safety is 0.15% of the Microsoft investment in AI in 2025. In other terms, it's 1.6% of the amount that Andreessen Horowitz, who's much more on the opposite end of AI safety, has raised in 2024. So this amount here is just really microscopic, and I'm just kind of posing the question: okay, why does it not go up? Why can't we expand this field? Why do we have still the same resources to fund all of this stuff? And kind of questioning if nonprofit is the way to go here. And on the other side, now arguing maybe actually for-profits do scale way better. So we have not really seen many nonprofit scale well. We have seen many for-profit scale really well. So here Anthropic on the left side raised 8.75 billion. Actually, I think they raised 4.5 more billion some time ago. SpaceX, same thing. SpaceX employs 14,000 people, at least according to their LinkedIn. So they somehow managed to kind of have really, really good, I assume, really, really good engineers working on just fundamental research, right? So I picked these two examples because it's not only for profits. So it's not only some, I don't know, delivery startup, but these are actually companies that do a lot of very like basic and impactful research. So that's why I kind of picked them. SpaceX just does kind of, rocket science and engineering, and they get to spend all of this money on doing this research in like a much, much larger fashion than nonprofit AI safety is able to do. Same thing with climate. So climate tech has 600 billion investments in a year. And if you just kind of compare this to what we're spending on nonprofit AI safety, it seems a bit odd to me. So I'm just kind of making the point, okay, maybe for-profits actually do scale very well. So maybe we should actually start more for-profits as a way of scaling impactful AI safety solutions. And the biggest kind of argument against it that I often hear from people is that AI safety isn't compatible with for-profit. So many people say, oh, but like you wouldn't want to fund this in a for-profit manner because then you can't do good research, or you would be too biased to do whatever. And I would have agreed in 2019, where we didn't really use that many advanced systems out there in the wild. but I don't think this is the case anymore. So everything that's happening right now with AI is happening in the wild. So all the things we do research, like all the models we do research on, are actually like live like products. So when people do research on Llama, when they do research on O1, O3, on all of the advanced models, these are out there in the wild. They are being used and implemented. So all of this is happening in the wild, and therefore I kind of argue you can also build all of these kind of safety, like the guardrails, and you can do much of the research that's necessary here in the wild as well. So you can do it in a for-profit setting. Here's also from the AI assurance tech report, like how this market is going to develop. So we see this drastic increase here, and some examples here on the left side of what you can actually do impactful in the for-profit space, where we just have like vastly more resources available. I think you also heard from Christian just earlier, and you also heard from Espen about a few examples of how this actually can be done. And I'm a strong believer that this is actually, the way to go. So this is just kind of my take on why you should found or consider actually doing this in a for-profit fashion, and starting your own arc. And now I just want to kind of give some reasons on why you shouldn't be doing this. So maybe like up until now, I was like, okay, AI safety is kind of, more important than ever. We don't have enough capacity to kind of take in people and really work on this. It's not going as great as it could be. Maybe we should start more orgs. Maybe actually because AI safety has like the funding has been declining in the last 4 years, maybe we should actually do it in a for-profit manner. And now I want to kind of give the caveat of, okay, what are the reasons why you should not become a founder? So I'm not saying, oh, everyone should go out there and, start an org, start a company. So I think there's some legitimate reasons for people to not become founders. I'll go through some good reasons of people not becoming founders, and then some bad reasons that I kind of think don't justify people not wanting to become founders. So just some good reasons. So if your economic circumstances don't really allow you to, that's an obvious one, right? If you have family to take care of, you have medical bills, you have something that doesn't allow you to take risks, that's an obvious one. Also, if you have extraordinarily high opportunity costs. So if you do have an offer from, I don't know, Meter or some really impactful org to do research exactly at their lab in a very impactful topic, then I also say go for that opportunity if you have it. For many people, they don't have this opportunity, and they don't have this high opportunity cost. You also saw this with OpenAI a while back, right? Where people ask themselves, is it actually worth working here on the safety team, or is it kind of more net negative? And people saying, okay, I'd rather go somewhere else. I leave OpenAI, the super alignment team, because I'm not really doing the impactful work here. So you always need to kind of question what's your opportunity cost, and maybe starting an organization or starting a for-profit specifically is actually the way to go. Another thing is you're not really like a very risk-averse person. I think that's pretty common for people working in nonprofit and research professions. That's also something you would need to deal with. And the last thing is you don't want to work hard or be uncomfortable for a long time. Very legitimate reason, very personal reason. Starting a startup is very hard, very tricky, and also you need to be very enduring, as it's going to take a while, and people are going to tell you you're wrong constantly. So you kind of need to be able to put in the work. Then I have some not so great reasons for becoming a founder. Sorry, not so great reasons for not becoming a founder. And the number one reason here being that you don't know anyone in your social network that's doing it. So I think that's the most common one, that we just don't see it much in the EA space or in the EA safety space of people actually founding startups. And I think that's not a really good reason. So there's no first principle thinking here. It's more like, okay, if they don't do it, then I won't do it. So that's kind of one of the worst reasons I can think of. Second reason kind of plays back into there is adults in the room. No, there are not. And many people believe, I'm not skilled enough. I didn't go to this crazy university. I didn't work at FANG or whatever. I'm not good enough. The reality often is that no, you are. You just don't have the confidence and the belief to kind of go all the way. And you should just kind of assume that you can do it and have a bit of a naive ambition here to go for that and believe that you're good enough to actually go through with it. Another good reason that I also touched upon is you believe AI safety and for-profit doesn't work together. As I just outlined, I believe it actually does really well. And then the last reason that I sometimes hear from people is that you want to found something, but you want to do it later, or like now is not the ideal time. And to that, I kind of say that there's never really an ideal time. So it's very rarely the case that everything aligns in your life and you have the possibility to start something. Oftentimes, you just need to kind of take a leap. Actually, it seems like with where the market is right now and like AI safety becoming like this very applied thing, that now is actually a really great time to found a startup. So just some of the not so good reasons for becoming a founder. And now coming to the part of, okay, you actually want to be a founder. Cool. Great. What do you do now? Where do you go from here? There's like a bunch of advice out there, so I'm not gonna touch on anything on too much here. Just kind of do the basics, read the classics. So here are just some books that kind of have been around in the startup ecosystem forever, and you can just read them and like hear way more about founding a startup than I could tell you. Talk with people, talk with founders, see how they like it, right? As you just did, talk with Christian. I also have a talk upcoming, or like many events with founders in the as part of the AI safety founders community. So there's an upcoming talk where you can talk with Leonard Tang, who is co-founder of Haze Labs, so one of these very impactful AI safety startups, and just ask him the questions that you're interested in. Maybe double check me, fact check me, and be like, oh, is he talking? Is he talking? Does it really make sense, or is it actually really like a bad idea to found an AI safety startup? And just get some other perspectives in there as well. Lastly, stay in the loop with new tools. So everything right now is changing drastically, and that also applies to building startups. So there's many tools that you probably heard about, like Lovable, V0, Cognition, all of these things, and you should leverage them as much as possible if you try to found a startup and just kind of speed up the way you build. Some of the personal learnings that I think are important if you kind of choose to go this for-profit AI safety startup route is to truly figure out what you want to do and why you want to do them. So it's kind of really asking yourself, okay, why am I doing the thing that I'm doing? So I did that for a whole while. So I worked in, I don't know, 7-8 different places, did all like very, very, very different things, and really tried to figure out what is the thing that I want to do. What am I after? What am I incentivized by? Right? Some people are incentivized by the money. Some people, I don't know, want to have an attractive partner. Some people really want to do good, and you kind of need to figure out what is the thing that incentivizes me, and does this kind of align with founding a startup? As I said, founding a startup is no easy task, and if this is like not super much like in line, then you might have some difficulties down the line, and you might be too easily pushed off the road of funding a startup and actually going again for some normal job or exiting at some certain time. Second thing, surround yourself with people with a similar goal. I think that's super important. There's like the saying that you are like you're like the average of your four closest friends or something like that. I think that's very true. Why is it kind of my personal learning? I think many people have that learning. I had that too when I moved to the Bay Area. So that was one of the reasons why I moved to the Bay Area. So I was living in Copenhagen. I was doing a business degree, or like was doing a degree at a business school, where I kind of realized, okay, like the people here, they don't really understand what I'm really into. They don't really understand too much what I'm saying. I believe I need some more people that I can relate to, and it's just gonna be really, really hard if you don't do this, unfortunately. So it's just really, really hard to be in a place where everyone kind of tells you you're crazy and you can't do this, and like you shouldn't do this. I think in like in the real world, it usually leads to people aiming much lower than they actually could. There obviously are some outstanding, visionaries who are able to withstand that. But for the vast majority, you just kind of start lowering your expectations, and it kind of pulls you down a little bit. So surround yourself with people with a similar goal, and that might actually cost you quite a bit. So that's also like a conscious choice you need to make, to say, okay, I'm going to surround myself with people who also believe that this is kind of the way to go, and you should kind of go there full speed ahead. Lastly, do the thing. So instead of spending too much time on your pitch deck or spending too much time about reading about stuff or listening to like podcasts about startups or whatever, actually start building the thing that you want to build. That's kind of number one rule, is to actually go out and do it and really look, okay, what do you want to do? What is the thing that you want to do, and actually start doing it in a structured manner. So that's just very obvious advice, but I think having been in myself, it's kind of always easier to look on a meta level on how you could improve your situation without actually doing the thing. So just some things for you to consider. And now all of this leads up to the big self plug of the Selden Accelerator. So all of this kind of goes in the direction of actually going out there, starting a thing, and finding community to do so. So all of these things that I just talked about were realizations that we had a while back, and that is kind of the reason why we are actually starting the Selden Accelerator. So the Accelerator program is for people who want to start their own for-profit and want to kind of try out this route of scaling impactful organizations. As been mentioned, you're very welcome to apply on seldenaccelerator.com. We currently have 2 programs. So we have the Accelerator program, which is kind of for people who are already working on a startup in a team, and they've already got some initial traction, and they really have an idea of where the journey goes and takes them. And then we also have a fellowship program that we're going to launch a bit later, which is more for individuals who are very determined that they want to found a startup, but they're a bit earlier on their journey, and they don't have a co-founder, for example, or they don't have exactly the right angle yet, and they're still more experimenting. So we have these 2 programs to just kind of get more people into the mood of founding a company and giving them like the community that I just talked about, and lead them down the way of founding their own startup. Some more links down here. So you can also go to aisfounders.com, which is AI Safety Founders, a community where we have some of these events more regularly, where we have roundtable meetings with other people just chatting about their founding journey. And we also have VC and startup spotlights where we invite people to talk firsthand about their experience as a founder or as VCs in the space. Also, very welcome to stay up to date with the part. And just as a very last slide, there is actually an upcoming AI Safety Founders event. I also mentioned it earlier. So if you want, you can join me and Leonard Tang. And he's one of the kind of classic like founder profiles. So he's like I think, Stanford dropout, Harvard person who now went out to raise from General Catalyst. And is building a really, really cool and impactful AI safety venture. So he's absolutely brilliant and very aligned. So don't miss out on that. You can just scan the code or just go to the website and find the link there. And yeah, with that, I think I'm gonna close off and open it up for questions if you have any. Yeah, thanks so much for listening to my talk.
Thank you so much, Finn, and everyone's clapping along at home, as always. Again, just like with Christian, you are very welcome to raise your hand at the bottom of the screen or write questions in the chat, where there has been a lot of conversation going on while we've been in the talk as well. Maybe one starting question here. I thought it was great, the different why not start a startup points. I especially think this whole thing about, oh, others are probably doing it, or those who are more intelligent are better than me, or those or that other nonprofit is doing the thing, why should I be doing something similar? I'm curious if you want to expand on some examples you've seen or some places where it's been relevant. I know that from a parts point of view, some of our work has been somewhat similar to what others have done, but it's just about, like, we've done it as well, and it's brought immense value, and we've done it in a very different way, and then it's been developing into a different version of what others do too. So maybe you have some more examples of that can give people some ideas.
Yeah, I think it's quite common that in especially kind of in the nonprofit space, because we kind of think, oh, this whole system is very like well coordinated and like everything has a spot there, and then if you kind of mention a topic, people are immediately like, oh, those guys are doing this and they are responsible for that. And what I think is missing is kind of this naivety of just kind of going out there and doing the thing. So people are very, if you kind of pitch them an idea for an org, many people will try to kind of rationalize the whole thing and be like, oh, actually, maybe there is like this thing. And if you overthink an idea, it's very, very easy to kind of find flaws in it before it has started. And that's kind of usually the thing that I mentioned about you can't really say what the future is going to hold. And that's like one core principle of entrepreneurship is there is uncertainty, and this uncertainty is huge. Like there's one definition of entrepreneurship which is basically only about uncertainty, and I think that often gets like it doesn't really get acknowledged as much as it could be. And then there is another aspect about in AI, like in for-profits, you are allowed to bullshit way more than you are allowed to bullshit in non-profits. So that's a thing where like people in the for-profit world, they want to found a startup and they are allowed to say, we are the best and we can do this and we know what this thing is. And they don't have to justify that with like real world evidence. They can just say, actually, I have experience because I worked here, or like I talk with my uncle, and they have some like somewhat like arbitrary reasons for why they can do it better, or like why they are the people who can do it. But you can just bullshit way more and have this confidence that you are good and are allowed to kind of start an organization. Whereas in nonprofit and the EA circles, it's way more common for people to not be able to bullshit. So if you say, "Oh, I know better than you because of X," people are gonna kind of very quickly are gonna say, "Actually, you don't, and actually you're wrong because of X, Y, Z." And obviously, you know, they have a point, but at the same time, I think it kind of leads to way fewer people who are willing to take that leap and go on to actually start something, because usually you don't know what you're doing at the very beginning of starting something, and people are not really willing to acknowledge this as a fact.
Yeah, I think in for-profits, if you don't say you're the best in the world at this and that your offering is the best, then it's slightly concerning for everyone. A great question here from Shad, actually. Do you know of any parents in AI safety, or rather, do you know whether it's possible to start a startup like this or to do very demanding roles with less time on your hand? So, for example, as they're doing like side, like on the side of a full-time work or something similar.
Very great question. I have to say that I mean I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to that directly. I think it's possible to some extent. It's kind of the question of what is your ultimate goal. So you can definitely start a side hustle, and I think many great businesses, or like most businesses or most startups, start out as people doing a side hustle. So they kind of start out with this idea, start working over time, start being like active on weekends and the evenings. And once you actually see this thing going somewhere, then you kind of need to make the jump. So I don't think it's entrepreneurship is a thing where if you don't have anything and you don't know anything about the space, that you just kind of like quit your job and then you kind of go build full time. The usual scenario is that you build on this project like next to you, the thing that you're doing as a main thing, and once you actually see this thing going somewhere, then you kind of decide to drop out or to quit your job or do whatever. I think that's also one of the things you see with like the very classic like startup founders from like the early 2000s, where like, oh yeah, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard, and all of these people, like usually the way it worked is people were working on their stuff, and once they realize, oh, this thing is actually like has huge potential, then they took a leave of absence, right? So it's not like, oh, you have to drop out and like immediately go all in. It's more like, okay, you start with this idea and you do what you can to kind of explore as much as possible. Is this actually worth it? So you can talk with, like in a classical startup handbook, that would be talk with customers and just like do all the things that kind of give you more evidence on whether this thing is going to work out or not. And then eventually you will likely have to make the jump. So kind of that's kind of the question of, so I think in the very long term, the ideal state is that you will make the jump and that you say at some point, okay, I will make this now my full-time job and my full profession, and I will dedicate most of my time to this. And obviously, there's many founders who are also parents. I would assume it's tricky. So starting a startup is very demanding. So I want to underplay how tricky it can be, but it's definitely a gradual thing. You don't need to drop everything right now and only focus on this, but only once you really know what you're doing, and like once you have a bit more evidence on on your idea, I think you should take the leap and go full time.
Yeah, I think we also see that if you work hard and smart, you get a really you have the potential to make a really impactful startup like SpaceX, for example, or Reshapes in bio or some of the other companies that's happening. But if you work smart but not as many hours, then you can still make a really impactful product. I personally know a bunch of people who build very complex algorithms that have very good fundamentals. So they have a very good proposal for what they change the world, but then work, until 4 p.m. every day. And in this way, I guess maybe an example is Eminem. He does rap. Like there's a toxic work culture, but he goes home every day at 5 p.m. because he prioritizes his family. So in a similar way, if you can be as successful as Eminem and do this, then down the line, potentially also as a parent. Nice. Thank you so much. I hope that the Eminem relation to AI safety makes sense now. We have another great question from Lulia. If you had a magic wand that turns research labs, nonprofit research labs, into startups, a great question, I think. What could Apollo, Apart, Meter, Miri, Redwood Research, all the others, what could they turn into?
Good question. I actually think all of these organizations are already pretty great organizations. So I don't know how much better they would get, because most of them I really admire their work and I think they're really good. I think we have too few of these types of organizations. So I think one thing that I kind of believe in is that as an organization you can only really focus on a very narrow one thing that you kind of do really well, and you can't do 5 things really well. So the issue is more that these organizations can't cover everything with kind of the size that they are at. Maybe they could scale significantly more. So maybe they could like a big corporation, they could scale really far, and then you have organizations such as Microsoft, who are billion-dollar organizations, are still somewhat agile, and they just kind of take on every single problem in kind of their space. But I think actually these organizations are already really great, and we just kind of need more of these types of organizations, even though I think all of them are somewhat funding constrained. And I think they could hire more people and start some more, just experiment a bit more. Just kind of my kind of take is, because a lot of people in the nonprofit space are very much trying to be as efficient as possible, and obviously you have kind of responsibility to your donors to be very careful with the money and really kind of use it as efficiently as you can. But in the scenario of AI safety, where the stakes are so high, I also kind of believe in the approach of just throwing money at the problem and really throwing more money at the problem and really seeing what works, experimenting way more with stuff and seeing if some of this might actually go better than it currently does. So instead of being very kind of frugal and only trying this one thing that you thought out really well, maybe throw more money at it and try it 5 different ways, and maybe the thing that you didn't think from the get-go was doing very well is actually going to turn out to be very efficient. So that's kind of my high level answer to that. But again, I think those organizations are really doing great work, and I'm not sure how much they would change in a for-profit setting.
Yeah, I also, just to give the case from Apart Research, originally in 2022, it was actually started as a for-profit and did a lot of pivoting or a lot of exploration of what sort of for-profit projects could happen that would align with solving these big problems. And at the time, there weren't any. So Apart was run as a nonprofit as a result. Because, hey, if you can't actually find that incentive that makes sure you work on the right stuff, extension risk reduction, catastrophic risk reduction, then damn it, do a nonprofit. And I think some of these organizations, it's really important that they exist. So therefore, they should be nonprofits and not necessarily for profits. And I guess a similar question here goes: what part of the $111 million in nonprofit funding in 2024 do you think personally goes to? I guess this is a specific list of organizations, so it goes to Apollo, Apart, Meter, Miri, and Redwood Research.
Very good question. I mean, you could definitely figure it out, right? All of this information is out there. Like the numbers were from a less wrong post, and you can go to the grant list and see what it is. And I would assume it's the vast majority. So we don't really take bets anymore. And as I said, the overall amount is declining since 2021. And also in my mind, there hasn't been many very highly scalable organizations coming out of in the past year or so. So it's the vast majority, and we don't really want to take more bets on this. And we think, oh, these players are already in place now, and they're going to handle it. But maybe they actually don't. I have no clue what the exact figure is. I would assume. I actually can't really give you an estimate. I would think the majority for sure.
Yeah, and I think also there are a few organizations starting now that are very focused on governance, which are like happening with Jeffrey Hinton, Joshua Bengio, and Stuart Russell, three godfathers of AI. I don't know if Stuart Russell makes the list, but he wrote a foundational textbook that has at least educated a lot. I think he does. But yeah, in that sense, where there's not many technical shots on goal happening right now compared to even a couple of years ago, actually. Another question, follow-up question from Jim, do you have any insight into what role the forthcoming Astralis Foundation will have in nonprofit and for-profit funding? Is this a question on a very specific VC fund or fund in this case?
Yeah, very good question. I read a little bit about them. I actually don't really know. Espen, I think you might know more than me on this one. So happy for you to take it if you know.
Yeah, I think the Astralis Foundation has been created from a few billionaires working together to kick it off. I think these types of foundations will have a profound impact, and it's somewhere where there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in this for-profit space. So Astralis is part of that wave of organizations and money going into the space that will be hugely impactful and will be really exciting to see where it ends up. So this will be our shots on goal fund, one of them. And there's a few others getting into it as well and doing more work, and some funds that are being liquidated from previous efforts too. And I'm sure, I'm sure Astralis will play a foundational role there. They are very focused on the impact case compared to some of the others. I'll mention as well, as partners in Juniper, is also like has the same impact case as Astralis, so it's very in sync there, and a place where I hope we can develop the field well. So yeah. Nice. That I ended up answering that. Sorry again. Cool. Nice. I think we're actually at the hour. Maybe we'll take one more question here, a little final question of what would be your one suggestion for people at the hackathon here, and what is your one suggestion as they follow up with their work or do take the next steps after this hackathon?
The number one thing you should take away is take it serious. So the thing you're working on can actually become a real thing. So the thing that you are currently thinking about working on, this has the potential to become a real company. And if you put in the work and you iterate enough on it, you might actually be able to scale this to a very, very large number of people being impacted by that. So kind of don't think, oh, this is just a silly hackathon project. Some of the greatest ideas ever came out of hackathons. So if you work on something, take it somewhat serious and think, oh, this could actually turn into something bigger, and think about these steps. And if you are thinking about founding, then that is kind of the best way to actually do the thing, as I said. And like being in a hackathon is very much doing the actual thing, and like just looking, where is your project now? What would be the next logical step? Always happy to help if there's any things you are wondering about. So yeah, take it serious if founding is something you consider. And also, obviously, I have to self-plug. If you are interested in joining, Zeldin might be a great place to do so.
Nice. Thank you so much, Finn, and thank you to all our audience members for the wonderful questions in the chat here. Another round of applause goes to you. Thank you so much, and everyone clapping along at home in their living rooms. Thank you so much. All right. Ciao.
Thank you.
For everyone around here, and